Hey, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel. My name is D, and today I want to talk about a noble lie that some writers have been telling themselves. But before we get into all of that, I want to give a quick shout out to my Plus Ultra Don't Fretters, my top tier supporters on Patreon, JJ Valdez and Peggy Luhu. Thank you so much for your support. You're helping to ensure I'm able to keep creating content and put it out as frequently as my depression and burnout will allow. If you also want to help support the channel, gain access to my private Discord server, and interact with a great community full of lovely, nerdy, creative people, and get some bonus content once a month, make sure you consider subscribing to my Patreon at patreon.com/thefretter. Free members of the Patreon get access to my monthly newsletter where I talk about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what I'm working on, stuff like that. If you want to help support the channel but you don't want a monthly subscription, you could buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/thefretter. Or apparently I have the super thank yous turned on YouTube. Either way, any of that support goes towards helping me get a new camera. The camera that I've been using for the last few years is actually a friend of mine's and he needs it back. So in order to keep making videos, I need a new camera. If you don't want to do any of that, no stress, but please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Okay, so I saw this video on TikTok.
I think we have been told a noble lie. And I don't mean what Plato has Socrates say, I mean the lie that you can become a great writer without reading, and that reading while you write somehow pollutes your own voice. This is very prevalent in writing culture today, and I see it argued in so many posts by aspiring authors and whatnot. And it's a comforting myth because it protects our ego. If I don't read, I'll stay original. Or if I isolate my voice, I'll sound more like me. That's not how art really works, is it? I don't believe that's how art has ever worked. You don't protect originality, which, in my opinion, being original, especially in storytelling, is kind of silly in my eyes, by avoiding influence, but you refine it by wrestling with everything that came before.
Some of you might recognize this author from the World of Guardian saga. He was kind of caught up in the fallout or the aftermath of the author formerly known as Audra Winter's response to the negative response to his book, The Age of Scorpius. This video isn't about that really at all, but real quick, yes, I have heard about the new developments in that story. At this point, I just hope that Milo gets the help and support that he needs and maybe stays away from the internet for a little bit longer to recover. Please stop sending me stuff on Instagram. So anyways, the noble lie that not reading will preserve your authentic authorial voice. Like, in a weird way, I kind of get how we could get to that notion. I think the book world, especially on the internet, champions breakthrough debut young authors who seem super original, and it's like they're demigods who've been blessed from on high with brilliant ideas that redefine the genre and take the world by storm. A genius that just comes out of nowhere. Especially in the West, we live in a hyper individualistic culture. It reminds me of like live, laugh, love type of individualism, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of the authors that I've either crossed paths with or observed in book talk or on booktube or whatever are very they have a lot of main character energy, I guess you could say. A lot of the book talk books that I reviewed on this channel previously do kind of come off like self-insert characters, like blank slate self-insert characters that are the special, the most chosen of chosen ones, you know what I'm saying? I think part of that is just because the author doesn't really want to put in a lot of effort and present the character with a lot of challenges. Like a special who has everything kind of conveniently handed to them, just easier to write because it's not good writing. And also I think some of these authors see themselves as the special, and they're the main character in their own story, and they're the main character in their own success story, which obviously everybody's kind of the main character of their own story. That's almost the point. That's not an issue. But I think a lot of artists want to be the GOAT. They want to be remembered as one of the best or the best, somebody who redefines the genre or the art form, but also they don't really want to put in the work to understand the art form. And when it comes to the literary writing world, I've never really considered myself to be a part of it. I don't know. I didn't grow up dreaming of one day being an author, probably just because I didn't think that was something I was allowed to dream, because I'm not smart and the literary world seems like it's for smarty arties, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know if this noble lie is a new thing that's more for Gen Z and Gen Alpha writers, or if I just missed it. I also think that I was lucky enough to have good teachers who kind of taught me the opposite of that. Like in high school, my creative writing teacher and my film studies teacher were like, real writers read. That was like a big thing for whether you're writing poetry and prose and fiction or you're writing screenplays. Real writers read, you know what I'm saying? So I read a fair bit as a kid because like I just thought that was part of the creative process. I didn't really veer too far out of the genres that I was reading, you know, like I guess my first forays into writing, like the novel that I talked about where I tried to impress a girl, and so I wrote her a vampire novel when I was 17, and then like some of the screenplays ideas that I had were just sort of inspired by like a lot of Anne Rice and other like gothic lit that I was into. And my film studies teacher also had us watch a shit ton of movies. Like that was part of the homework. We had to watch like a movie a week or something like that and give him like 500 words on what you thought of the movie to help develop your own taste in film, and also to like help understand how different films and different genres of film were made. Like, because you couldn't just watch one genre of film. Like if you only watched horror, you were probably gonna get like a C. One of my friends got into a little bit of trouble because she would only watch horror movies because that's what she was into, and she wanted to get into like practical effects or like CGI. I forget. I don't. She's an animator for Disney, but yeah, you had to watch like a wide variety of films, and he also had like a curated list of films for you to pick from. And then when I was in college, I was studying youth work, and I took a songwriting elective just for fun. Again, the instructor was like, real writers read. So like not only should you be reading if you want to be a lyricist, but also listen to a bunch of different types of music, stuff that you're gonna like, stuff that you're not gonna like. And very briefly, I wrote songs with and for other artists, and I remember working on an album with this country singer, and I remember that being a really cool experience because like a lot of the writers or artists that I knew at the time would sort of just pull from like whoever they were trying to sound like, you know, like one of my former friends was really wanted to sound like Ariana Grande, so we pulled from a lot of Ariana Grande and the people that Ariana Grande liked. But this country singer, she was pulling from all over the map. Like we was listening to conscious hip hop, metal, Spanish music, some like Japanese music, stuff like that. Like this lady was pulling from all over the map and trying to like just take like little lyrical techniques or melodies from other places. I thought that was really cool. Inspiration is everywhere, and I think that inspiration is inevitable.
But I believe we tell ourselves this because we fear that maybe we'll realize how much greater others have written before us. Fear that our work will grow destitute in their shadow while we read it. But the truth is, every writer begins in another author's shadow.
I wonder sometimes if people who want to like maintain their originality or their individuality are afraid that if they're inspired by another artist, they'll come off like a hack. And that makes sense. Like being called a hack doesn't feel good. And also you don't really want to be a hack, you know what I'm saying? But I think if you're a creative type, inspiration is unavoidable. And I think this is weird, and this is really only something I've seen in the internet book space, but this idea that like ideas exist in a vacuum, they just come out of nowhere, like a whole fantasy world or a whole fantasy universe, the political machinations, the ecology, the economy, the magic, all this shit, like that just comes from somewhere. But it's like it doesn't. The actual goats draw inspiration from the world they live in, this world. And all the goats started out because they were inspired by an artist that came before them.
Reading doesn't really dilute your voice, but it will distill it. Most of the greats read obsessively, argued with the page, stole and reshaped what they loved from other books into their own. Think of influence as like an inheritance while you write.
And if you're an artist, you know, there's a lot of writers that watch this channel, a lot of writers in the Patreon community. It's incredibly likely that you got started because you were moved by a piece of art. And that's a really beautiful thing, you know, like being an artist is participating in a legacy. But the issue with inspiration is when we can see it, like when we can tell the artist is just trying to replicate something that they like. In my opinion, I would call somebody a hack when I can tell who they're trying to be. You know what I'm saying? I've been doing stand-up comedy for just a little over a year, and in open mics and stuff, you can usually see at least like 5 dudes who you can tell who they're trying to be. They're probably trying to be Louis C.K., Bill Burr, or Anthony Jeselnik. With a lot of the book talk books that I reviewed, you could tell that people are either trying to be or trying to replicate the success of Sarah J. Maas or J.K. Rowling. And I've read a few books where I could tell the author doesn't really read, or at least doesn't read outside of the fantasy genre, because I've very specifically been reviewing a lot of fantasy and romantasy. So if you're like avoiding inspiration because you're trying to avoid being a hack, that's a good thing, but the answer isn't to avoid being inspired or avoid drawing inspiration or getting ideas from someone else's work. The answer is to get ideas from a bunch of different sources. One of my most viewed series on this channel is my review. One of my most viewed series on this channel is my reviews of the powerless. One of my most viewed series on this channel are my reviews of the Powerless trilogy by Lauren Roberts. And I didn't know this before I started reading the series, but a lot of people were telling me in the comment section that Powerless is just the Red Queen mixed with the Hunger Games. Like this beat here, and I gotta stop referencing this lady because I don't know her. But Meredith Novaco, I should also learn how to pronounce her name and then keep it out of my mouth. But she did a video kind of comparing these two, and apparently, like, as the Powerless trilogy continues, Lauren Roberts does this, but with like different books that make the series very like clunky, disjointed, and all over the place. The idea of taking elements of stories that you like and kind of mixing them together, I think is a good, like, I think that that's interesting. But when you just do it with like 2 at a time and it's very blatant and there's no thoughts on how to twist those elements even further, like, laziness is a social construct, but that's pretty lazy. I think you got to take it farther than that, twist things up, add more things. And, like, I don't even think that this is ever gonna come out. Like, I don't think anyone's ever gonna read this. But one of the characters in my work in progress is like loosely inspired by like the Wolverine and also Green Arrow from Arrow, and also there's other things mixed in there to make the character feel more unique. But I started with like this kind of like old angry superhero type, but it's not even a superhero story. So, and I feel like I'd be hypocritical or maybe like touting myself as some sort of creative I feel like I'd be like patting myself on the back or hypocritical or something if I didn't acknowledge that. Also, I've been called out for this a little bit in my own work. Like, in a recent YouTube video, somebody commented that like in some of my stand-up comedy sets, I reminded them of Josh Johnson. And I took it as a compliment at first, but I really wrestled with them. Like, I should probably try to change how I move and draw inspiration from other comics. And now my main influence in my comedy isn't even a comedian. And I'm not saying that just because like now I'm this totally unique, super comedian or something like that. Like, I think maybe I would always get that association because racism. And that's not to say that like now I'm this like super unique, super brilliant comedian who's like not even like learning from other comedians. I'm just like trying to pick ones that at the very least don't kind of look like me. At the very least you wouldn't expect, I think, is what I'm trying to say. And I got similar critiques when I first started out in poetry. Like, my favorite poet is InQ, and so my first few poems are just me doing an impression of InQ, and I had to like develop more of my own voice and my own cadence and my own rhythm, and some of that just takes time. But what about my own unique voice? Your individuality, your uniqueness, your unique voice is not diluted or tainted by consuming other people's art. It's refined by it. I'm a creative writing and poetry teacher. I work in a bunch of different schools, and I always tell students that I work with or the artists that I mentor not to worry too much about saying something brand new, but to find their own authentic way of saying what's on their mind or what they're feeling or whatever. I felt this way even before I saw this TikTok or before I read Steal Like an Artist. When I was like a little kid, I met my older sister's boyfriend who was like a comedian. Like, this is the first real comedian. I say real as in like he wasn't on TV. He's not famous or anything. I don't even think he does stand up anymore. At the time, I was just like blown away by the idea that like there's a comedian in my house eating my mom's Chinese food, eating Chinese food with me. But, you know, he said something about like, you know, everything's already been done before. Like, it's hard to come up with unique ideas. And I remember that really sticking with me. And then as I got older and I got into like music and poetry, comedy, whatever, I kept thinking to myself, like, I guess if like you can't come up with something wholly original, the best you can aim for is to find your own like way with things and try to have like a unique blend of influences. You know what I'm saying? And what if it's been done before? Again, I think that that's okay. You've never done it, and it's never been done in your specific way. And this quote gets credited to Andre Gide a lot, but what is it? Everything that has been said, everything that needs to be said has already been said, but since nobody was listening, everything must be said again. Really don't think it's about finding a wholly unique thing to say, but finding a way to say it yourself. And for writers, like, reading a lot is kind of how you figure out how you want to say things, because consuming art makes you a better artist. And it is partly because finding art that you like, that inspires you, something that's so good it makes you want to be better at the thing you do, is amazing. It's a great feeling. It's really exciting. And I think that's one of the fun parts of being an artist. Because also, I guess if we're talking about being a writer, I guess this is an author tube channel now. I don't fucking know. But like, if we're talking about being a writer, being a better reader is going to make you a better writer, because if you're a more experienced reader, you know the kind of reading experience you want to give to your readers. Because like some athletes do that too, right? Where like they'll watch some of their favorite players and how they do the things that they do, and then try to apply those teachings, and they'll be like, oh, well, I'm not built the same way, so I'll just find a different way to do it, or I'll adapt what I can. I just dropped a Patreon video where I talked about learning this lesson from an episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's the part where Iroh's teaching Zuko how to redirect lightning based off of him watching waterbenders. You know what I'm saying?
It is important to draw wisdom from many different places. If we take it from only one place, it becomes rigid and stale.
I don't say this too much to the kids that I teach, because I don't presume that they want to be working artists or creative entrepreneurs or whatever, but to the few artists that I mentor who are like adults trying to figure this thing out, I usually tell them that part of our job as artists is to strive to match our own levels of taste. And how are you going to do that if you don't develop a sense of taste? If you've been watching this channel for a minute, then you know that one of my top 5 favorite authors is V.E. Schwab. And some people get real mad at me when I say that, but I don't think she's infallible. I totally understand why she's not for everybody. That said, they are very prolific. I think they've dropped like 25 books in 14 years. That's crazy. And I've heard them say this a lot in like podcasts and interviews and stuff, that they read 100 to 120 books a year. And they consider that part of the work of being a writer. Bob recommends reading voraciously and reading all types of different genres: fiction, nonfiction, fantasy, thriller, romance, cookbooks maybe. I don't know. That last one I can't substantiate. I might have just like misquoted. I don't get around to reading nearly that many books. I think the most I've ever read is 70 in a year, but I'd like to get up to that level at some point. I want to echo that advice, and I also want to like go a little further and say, like, also read shit you might not like. As much as I ever like complained about reviewing book talk books on this channel previously, and like, I don't know, if one sounded real ridiculous, I'd probably review it on this channel. But like, I learned a lot about my own reading taste from reading those books, stuff that like had never occurred to me before. And so like, if I ever finish this stupid fucking werewolf vampire book series, I would have to acknowledge, at least to myself, that some of my creative decisions were made based off of what I learned that I didn't like in those Book Talk books. Whether I would want to admit it to myself or not, the fact is that like those books taught me a lot about like tropes and character archetypes and stuff that I just like, I really didn't like, and have made decisions almost like in opposition to those books. Or I'm trying to take some of those tropes and like twist them up and make them like almost parody them, maybe. I don't know. I feel like I'm talking myself up too much. But yeah, like read diversely. And I don't just mean across different genres, but also like from different perspectives, different people. I don't want this video to be a summary or a ripoff of Steal Like an Artist, which would be kind of ironic. But like I read it in preparation for this video. I think it's fine. Like I feel like because I already kind of agreed with this guy, there were some good quotes in there, but it didn't really like blow my mind, and I would give it like 3 out of 5 stars. It's like it's weird because this is one of those books where I'm like, oh no, I recommend it, but not highly. You know, it's like I midly recommend it. I don't really want to call it a lie, but this belief that reading somehow dilutes your authentic authorial voice, I get where it comes from, but I do think that it's antithetical to how creativity functions. And allowing yourself to be inspired and searching far and wide for different inspiration from different genres, even outside of your medium. Like Ryan Coogler, director of a bunch of different movies, and they all star Michael B. Jordan, says that he wants to make movies that make people feel the way music makes him feel. A.A. Vora, you know, drew a lot of inspiration from anime and manga for Spin of Fate, and I think Wheel of Wrath just came out. I think that the bottom line of this video, you know, I've been doing a lot of like creativity advice lately. It's not because I think that I'm like an authority on writing. I don't think that I'm better than anybody. Because you know, I used to make this joke, but after reading Outliers, I don't know if I can still make it. But if the 10,000 hours to become an expert thing is real, I'm an expert at being a struggling artist. I don't have like 6 pieces of advice or whatever, but I guess I would say like open yourself up to being inspired. Draw inspiration from a bunch of different places and try to find unique combinations of things. Take tropes that you hate and try to twist them up into something that you like. Or take character archetypes you hate and try to critique that character arc in your story. Character archetypes that you can't stand or you find annoying, and like critique them or parody them or something. I don't know. Play around, be creative, be inspired, because inspiration is everywhere. You just need to pay attention. And even if like a critic or a peer or something calls your work derivative or uninspired, instead of like taking that as like a personal attack, maybe the answer is to take it as encouragement to go even further, to search even wider, get even weirder. And maybe if the story that you really want to tell is kind of vanilla, maybe that's okay. Maybe it's okay to just create the stuff you want to create because it's what you want to create. Being heralded as a genius or as somebody breaking ground and redefining a genre, just it might be cool. Might come with a decent paycheck or something. I don't know. But if at the end of the day, the only reason that you're creating is because you want to be known as the next J.K. Rowling or the next Sarah J. Maas or the next Brandon Sanderson or whatever, I feel like those motivations are weak and they're not going to get you through the low lows of the creative journey. And so I would way rather see somebody execute a basic idea well than drive themselves insane trying to come up with something brilliant that's never been done before, because it's all been done before, but you've never done it before. So go do it. Write because you love writing. Build the worlds that you want to be in or the worlds that you want to explore. Tell the stories that you want to be told. I don't know. Thank you so much for watching this video, especially if you made it to the end. Patreon.com/SteveFredder. Support the channel, get some bonus content, join the private Discord server. Ko-fi.com if you want to just support the channel one time. And if you don't want to do any of that, just like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. My name is D. Don't fret. I'll see you next time. Peace out.